This is the story of how a single, seemingly accidental text message cost a successful lawyer her entire $2.5 million life savings. It started with a handsome stranger and the promise of romance, but it ended in total financial ruin. This isn't a story about guns or masks. It unfolds with a simple hello and a masterfully built illusion. The weapon wasn't a line of code that could hack a bank. It was a human script, a psychological masterclass in manipulation that turned a brilliant legal mind against her own best judgment. So, how did they do it? How did scammers convince a woman trained to spot deception to willingly hand over a fortune? And the most important question, could it happen to you? The answer is more terrifying than you think. Because as you're about to find out, there are no unscammable people, only scripts that haven't found your vulnerability yet. Before the text, before the stranger, there was Tsai, a successful lawyer from a suburb of Boston, Massachusetts. To understand how she could lose everything, you have to understand the life she was living and the invisible battles she was fighting. On the outside, Cindy's life looked like a series of achievements. She was a corporate and financial lawyer, a field where skepticism isn't just a skill, it's a survival tool. Her entire career was built on identifying risk, dissecting arguments, and protecting her clients. By all accounts, she was the last person you'd ever expect to fall for a scam. But under the surface, a perfect storm was brewing. The first blow was a devastating medical diagnosis, gastric cancer. In January of 2021, Cindy had her entire stomach removed in a life-altering surgery. This wasn't just a medical event. It was a complete upheaval of her life, a daily, physical reminder of her own fragility. As she was reeling from that, the second blow landed. Her husband of 16 years left her. The partnership that had defined her adult life was gone, leaving a massive void of companionship, right when she needed support the most. Then, the storm got even worse. In September 2021, while trying to navigate this new reality as a cancer patient and a divorcee, the cancer came back. It had recurred. This nightmare combination of a life-threatening illness, a radical surgery, and the collapse of her marriage created a state of extreme vulnerability. As Cindy herself later put it, she was in the most vulnerable time she had ever been in her life. She was isolated, not just by the pandemic that had forced so much of life online, but by the uniquely lonely nature of her suffering. Her days were a blur of doctor's appointments and recovery. Her nights were filled with fear. She was a lawyer, yes, but she was also a human being dealing with pain, loss, and a desperate need for connection. And it was into this perfect storm of emotional need that the first text message arrived, promising a little bit of sunshine. It arrived on a Friday in October 2021. A simple WhatsApp notification from a number she didn't recognize. The first message was just one word, hello. Cindy, like most of us, ignored it. Probably spam. But a few hours later, another message popped up. Are you Linda from the pet store? This is a doorway in. The wrong number text is a classic opening for one of the world's most insidious scams because it feels so harmless and real. It's an everyday mistake. Cindy's first instinct was just to be polite. She replied with 3 words, sorry, wrong number. She had no idea that the simple courtesy would be the most expensive text she'd ever send. That was a digital handshake that opened the door. The person on the other end didn't just apologize and leave. He was charming and introduced himself as Jimmy. His profile picture showed a handsome, well-dressed man. He noted that from her profile picture, it looked like they shared a similar Chinese heritage. This was the first tiny thread of connection. It shifted the conversation from a mistake to a social interaction. It wasn't a dating app or a cold message asking for something. It felt like a happy accident. That subtlety is the genius of the script. It's designed to bypass our natural defenses. If a stranger messages you asking for money, you block them. If they hit you with a cheesy romantic line, you're suspicious. But a wrong number? That feels different, organic. For Cindy, who was adrift in anxiety and loneliness, this brief, friendly chat was a welcome distraction from the constant fear about her health and heartbreak. The conversation just flowed. He asked about her day, what she did in Boston. It was all so normal, so completely harmless. There were no red flags, because there was nothing to raise an alarm. It was just two people talking. The hook wasn't set with some grand gesture, but with a series of small, patient, and perfectly calculated steps. The scammer wasn't kicking down the door. He was being invited inside, one polite message at a time. Once the door was open, Jimmy began to execute his script with absolute mastery. He wasn't just a scammer. He was playing the role of the perfect man. Jimmy seemed to be everything a person in Cindy's situation could ever hope for. He presented himself as not just handsome and successful, but as deeply empathetic. He was an incredible listener. As their WhatsApp chats grew from casual messages to daily check-ins, Cindy started to open up. She told him about the cancer, the surgery, the divorce. She shared the raw, painful details of the storm she was living through. And Jimmy responded with what felt like genuine compassion and rock-solid support. He became, in her own words, a comfort for her during a difficult time. This is a deliberate grooming process, known in the scam world as love bombing. It's an overwhelming fire hose of affection and attention designed to create a powerful emotional bond and make the victim dependent on the scammer. For Cindy, it was exactly what she was craving. Jimmy sent good morning and good night texts. He asked about her doctor's appointments and remembered the details. He celebrated her small wins and was a virtual shoulder to cry on. He filled the silence of her empty house, becoming a constant, reassuring voice in her life. In her mind, this digital friendship was quickly becoming a real relationship. He was the one person who seemed to get what she was going through. Her cancer diagnosis didn't scare him off. In fact, he told her he admired her strength. He made her feel seen and cared for when she felt most alone. This is the core of the psychological manipulation. The scammer identifies the victim's deepest emotional needs, in this case, for support and companionship, and then transforms into the perfect fantasy to meet those needs. They never met in person. They never even had a video call. From the outside, that's a colossal red flag. But from inside the bubble of the romance, it's easy to explain away. He was busy with work. The pandemic made travel hard. And besides, the emotional connection felt so real that the physical distance just seemed like a temporary problem they'd eventually solve. Jimmy wasn't just building a romance. He was building a fortress of trust. Every supportive message was another brick in that wall, isolating her from doubt. He wasn't some random guy anymore. He was her confidant, her partner, her hope for a future. He had made himself indispensable. And once he was indispensable, it was time for the next phase of the plan. With that foundation of trust cemented, Jimmy slowly started to shift the conversation. This part of the script is delicate. It can't be sudden. It has to feel like a natural part of him sharing his life with her. He started talking about his work, and specifically, his incredible success trading cryptocurrency. It began casually. He'd mentioned a great trade he made. Then he started sending screenshots, compelling visuals of a trading account with huge profits, numbers that just kept climbing. To make it feel more legitimate, he'd mentioned how figures like Elon Musk were all over the crypto space, framing it as the new way to build wealth. Cindy, with her background in financial law, was skeptical at first. Her professional instincts kicked in. She told him straight up, "Look, I don't need a financial advisor. I'm not giving you a dime." This was the moment of truth, the point where a lesser scam would have crumbled. But Jimmy's response was brilliant. He didn't push back. He agreed with her. "You're not giving me a dime," he said. "This is completely controlled by you." He wasn't asking to invest her money for her. He was offering to teach her his method. He would give her the tools, but she would be in the driver's seat. This reframing was a psychological masterstroke. It neutralized her main objection. She wasn't giving him money. The only risk, it seemed, was trying a new kind of investment that she would manage herself. That felt like a risk she could handle. He sent her a link to a crypto trading platform. To the untrained eye, and even to a trained one not specifically looking for fraud, the website looked perfectly real. It was sleek, professional, and mimicked the design of well-known exchanges. As an FBI agent would later explain, scammers have become very sophisticated at making these websites look real when they're not. Cindy clicked the link and set up an account. She started small, transferring a modest amount of her own money. And just like the screenshots promised, the numbers on her screen started to go up. Her small investment appeared to be making impressive returns day after day. The platform was a complete fake, a digital stage where the scammers controlled every number she saw. But to Cindy, it looked and felt real. It was thrilling. Her skepticism was melting away in the face of what seemed like undeniable proof. Seeing those returns, she invested more, and then more, over the next few months. With Jimmy's encouragement and the ever-growing numbers on her screen, Cindy Tsai transferred her entire life savings into the fake platform. The balance on the fraudulent website eventually showed a breathtaking $2.5 million. She had taken the bait, and the gilded trap was about to snap shut. With $2.5 million of Cindy's real money in their accounts, the scammers moved to the final, brutal phase of the operation. This is what gives the pig butchering scam its name: the slaughter, where the victim is bled dry before being discarded. The moment came when Cindy decided she wanted to withdraw some of her incredible profits. She logged onto the platform that had shown her nothing but success and started the process. But the money didn't appear. Instead, she got an error message. She contacted the site's customer service, another part of the scam run by the same criminals. They were polite but firm. To withdraw her millions, she first had to pay taxes on her capital gains. The bill they presented was huge, hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is a classic follow-up tactic. The original money is already gone, but by dangling the victim's own profits in front of them, scammers can often squeeze out even more. The psychology is cruel. To unlock your $2.5 million, you just need to pay this one tax bill. For Cindy, this was the red flag that finally broke through the illusion. The demand for a huge upfront tax payment just didn't feel right. She reached out to Jimmy, her partner, the man who had guided her here. At first, he was supportive, telling her to just pay the tax and that it was standard procedure. He was making one last attempt to keep her on the hook. But Cindy refused. The lawyer in her finally took back control. She knew something was fundamentally wrong. And when she made it clear she wasn't sending another cent, Jimmy's entire personality changed. The warmth vanished. The charming, attentive man she thought she loved was gone. When she pressed him, he became hostile. And then he disappeared. The WhatsApp profile picture went blank. The chat history was all that was left of the lie. The lifeline was cut. The realization crashed down on her with sickening force. There was no Jimmy. There was no relationship. There were no profits. It was all fake. Her life savings, the money for her cancer treatments, and her children's future was gone. She had willingly wired it, piece by piece, to criminals. She went to the FBI, but they told her what most victims hear. With cryptocurrency, once the money is gone, it's almost impossible to get back. This story is a warning. These scammers are professionals running a sophisticated operation, and they turn our basic human need for connection against us. Protecting yourself and your information online is more important than ever. That's why we partner with a service that helps you safeguard your digital life. They monitor your personal information and can alert you to threats before a scammer even has a chance to text you. There's a link in the description to learn more. It's a simple step that can help make sure your story doesn't end like Cindy's. Now, let's get back to how these operations really work, because understanding the enemy is the first step in defeating them. What happened to Cindy is a look inside one of the cruelest forms of modern crime, the pig butchering scam, or Sha Zhu Pan in Chinese. The name is horrifically accurate. It refers to the process of fattening up a victim with affection and false promises of wealth before the slaughter, stealing all their money. This isn't one person in a basement. It's an industrialized global crime, with massive operations often run from compounds in Southeast Asia. The Jimmy that Cindy talked to was likely a team of people following a refined script. And in a twisted turn, the person typing the messages is often a victim themselves. Someone lured by a fake job offer and now trapped in modern-day slavery, forced to scam others to survive. Let's break down how it works. The whole scam is built on illusion. First, the entry point. The wrong number text is a favorite because it feels accidental and non-threatening, bypassing the skepticism people might have on a dating app. Second, the grooming. This is pure social engineering. Scammers use the information victims share, loneliness, illness, divorce, to perfectly tailor a romance script to their emotional needs. They are even using AI-generated personas and deepfake videos to make the illusion more convincing. Third, the fraudulent platform. The website where Cindy invested her money was a sham. These spoof sites look exactly like legitimate platforms like Coinbase or other exchanges. When a victim sends money, they aren't buying anything. They're sending funds directly to a wallet controlled by the scammers. The dashboard showing their balance skyrocketing is just a web page with numbers the scammers can change at will. Finally, the exit. The money trail is designed to be untraceable. Cryptocurrency is perfect for this because, unlike a bank transfer, it's largely anonymous and irreversible. Once a crypto transaction is confirmed, there's no central authority to reverse it. The scammers use services called mixers to jumble the stolen funds with thousands of other transactions, making it virtually impossible for law enforcement to follow the money. The scale of this is staggering. Recent studies estimate these criminal networks have moved over $75 billion globally in just a few years. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center reported that investment fraud, which includes pig butchering, soared over $3.9 billion in losses in 2023 alone, a 53% increase from the year before. In the wake of the scam, Cindy Tsai was left with an empty bank account and the crushing weight of what happened. The financial loss was catastrophic, but the emotional toll was worse. There was shame, disbelief, and gut-wrenching self-blame. How could she, a lawyer whose entire career was built on due diligence, have fallen for this? She explained this internal battle perfectly, describing the disconnect between your logical self and your emotional self. She said, "I think I was probably the most vulnerable in my entire life. I desperately wanted to believe him." This statement gets to the very heart of why these scams work. They don't target your intelligence. They target your humanity. They exploit our universal need for hope and connection. It would have been easy for Cindy to hide her story out of shame. Many victims do, but she made a different choice. She decided to fight back. She reported the crime to the FBI and connected with the global anti-scam organization, a group that supports victims of these crimes. Through them, she discovered she wasn't alone. She saw the global scale of the problem and the chillingly similar patterns in every story. She learned the scripts are always evolving, with scammers now posing on professional networks like LinkedIn. This knowledge turned her from a victim into an advocate. Cindy Tsai chose to share her story, not for sympathy, but as a warning. She bravely put her name and face to a crime that thrives in the shadows. She knew people would judge her. She knew they would say, "I would never fall for that." But she also knew that by speaking out, she could shatter that illusion of immunity for someone else. She could give them the one thing she never had: awareness. Her new mission is to make sure her devastating loss was not in vain. Cindy Tsai's story is a harrowing cautionary tale. It started with a text of the wrong number and ended with the loss of a life savings. It shows us that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's just part of being human. And in a world where so much of our lives are lived through screens, our deepest needs can be weaponized against us with terrifying efficiency. The pig butchering industry is a multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise that is only getting more sophisticated and continues to grow. So, how do you protect yourself? The FBI and other experts give clear advice. First, be deeply skeptical of any online relationship that suddenly pivots to investment advice, especially in crypto. Second, never click on unsolicited links to investment platforms or send money based on advice from someone you've only met online. Do your own independent research. Third, if it feels too good to be true, it absolutely is. High, guaranteed returns are the oldest lure in the book. But maybe the most powerful defense is to destroy the shame that lets these crimes flourish. Cindy Tsai bravely shared her story to warn others. She said she wants to raise awareness, judge or not. Her story proves this can happen to anyone: a lawyer, a doctor, a police officer. There are no unscammable people, just scripts that haven't found your weakness yet. Remember her story. Share it. And the next time you get a text from a wrong number, be polite, but be vigilant. Because You never truly know who's on the other end of the line.